right. What's up, gang? How we doing? Another NFL live stream. 3 games today. Yesterday was kind of a frustrating day. The Ladidi came through for me as he always does. Guy's a stud. I've scored. I wish I'd bet that. But the Ravens game was frustrating. I had likely 4 and 5 plus receptions. He had 3 in the first half. Didn't have any in the second half. And then I had Jalen Moore and over 19 and a half receiving yards, ended with 19. So super frustrating second half of that game. But, that's how it goes. We did cash out Pickens at least. How about you? How was your day?
Pretty good. Got one QB right, one QB wrong. I got the Muth pick right as well. Love Nico Collins. I didn't take him on the yards. I just took him on the receptions for Nico. So, it is what it is. It's still cash, but
it still made money. Yeah.
Right. You can get the right result even if you don't have the best math adding up to get there. So we're good with it. But yeah, overall, like a unit up. So a little bit okay. But, you always want more from these games.
Yes, especially the playoffs, and there's like one and everybody's dialed in. But yeah, all good. Yeah. Excuse me. All right. So yeah, sorry, I don't know what the dogs are going crazy about. What are you going to do? That's just dogs for you. All right, this game here, we got Broncos Bills. Neither of us are really mainline guys. I would lean towards the Broncos covering the spread. Granted, this was like 9.5, and now it got down to 10.5. Or sorry, 7.5. So the market kind of agreed with that. Total, I have no thoughts on the total. Any thoughts on any of the main lines? Obviously, I'm assuming we both think the Broncos or the Bills are going to win, but other than that,
I mean, that's the thing is like I'm not willing to take the Bills more than -7.5, or more than -7, really. So if I'm not willing to take the Bills, then I don't know that I'm willing to just like bet on their money line either at that point. I mean, that's sort of a hard and fast rule that I've been told is if you're not willing to take a favorite spread, then don't take their money line. Which is kind of like don't take an alt line on a prop and then parlay it with a bunch of other props that are also alt line. Like it's the same kind of concept here. So, but I think the Broncos can cover, man. I think they're it's really going to come down to Josh Allen rushing, which I'm sure we'll talk about a bit. But we definitely start talking about QB rushing a bit more in the playoffs. And I think if he's willing to take off and run against that man D, then that's going to be a huge part of this is can they sustain drives with his legs essentially? Yeah.
Well, I'm with you. Yeah. I mean, sounds like we're kind of on the same page with Josh Allen, so we could just get into it. Did you take his rushing yards?
I haven't bet it, but I think I'm going to. Shout out once again, producer David sent me a few notes this morning that were super duper helpful to help me get there with it. Because I do think against man coverage in the playoffs, he's shown the propensity to run. I think if he's at David gave me an awesome stat about 5.2 yards per carry against man coverage this season, and if he is going to be at that number, like I do think what's his rushing attempts? Is it 8.5 or 9.5? I pull that up real quick. I like to use that. Is it 10?
7.5.
Oh, okay, yeah, I thought it was 8.5, which was going to give me an easy path to the over 40.5, if that's still what that rush number is at. So yeah, I think he's good for it. I'm 7.5 with an over implied probability to the over that he's going to run 8 times, and you can get. Is it 43 is like the core?
43.5. Yeah, most books have 43.5.
It went up a couple of yards since I was looking at it last night and into this morning, but I'm still okay with that, to be honest. So yeah, I do like his rushing in this one. If he's going to go 8 times, I think he's going to get more than 40 yards. That's where I'm at. As I am one to do, I took 50 plus rushing yards. The line on this was crazy. It was at Bet365, it was plus 210. And now I think it's down to, and I'm pulling it up now because Outlier doesn't have the best alternate odds because they don't have, for whatever reason, they never pull 365. Yeah. But either way, like 50 plus, so it's plus 130 now. So like obviously that went down a crazy amount. Plus 210 never made any sense. I didn't even look at this demand zone splits or anything like that. And here's what David was saying: 5.5% to 10% rush attempts and facing man coverage. Yeah, I didn't even look at the man. I just looked at Josh Allen playoff stats. He's gone 50 plus in 7 of 10 games. He did it in both playoff games last year. He had a rushing touchdown in both of them. He had 2 rushing touchdowns against the Chiefs. Granted, like last year's team was different. They were much less run heavy than they are this year with James Cook. They passed the ball a lot more. Like once they took over, their offensive coordinator, whose name I'm blanking on, was Ken Dorsey.
Yeah, then they switched it.
It's Joe from
Brady.
Bengals.
Brady.
Yeah, Joe Brady.
Yeah, the guy who was on the Panthers and on LSU before that. Yeah. like Josh Allen was running a ton more so last year than he was this year. Like if you look at last year, and this is just the end of the year, and his rushing touchdowns was crazy last year too. I mean, he scored a touchdown of 14.
I think it was like week 10 or so that Dorsey was fired. Week 11, somewhere in there, and then last year he went bananas with the rushing.
Yeah, and then he started rushing more at the end of this year. Like the beginning of the year, he didn't do it at all, and then what's this like 5 of the last 7, 6 of the last 8, whatever that is, and like 3 touchdowns, 2, 3, 2, like just insane touchdown totals.
Right.
So yeah, like this isn't like as analytical as I normally get, but it's just like, Josh Allen runs more in the playoffs. Like there's some quarterbacks and look at Lamar Jackson last night. He never ran against the Steelers, and then last night he ran a ton. You know what I mean? It's just like it's do or die.
His mom told him to. His mom, Lamar's mom, got involved and was like, "Lamar, you got to run more."
That's true. That's true. We need to see if Josh Allen had a conversation with his mom.
What's his mom saying to him? That's right.
Yeah. And while we're talking about Josh Allen, I also put a quarter unit on 2 touchdowns. He did it in one playoff game against the Chiefs last year. He scored 1 touchdown against the Steelers. And I showed you like how much he's been scoring more recently. So the Broncos run defense is really good. They have like the lowest adjusted yards before contact per attempt. Their stuff rate's really good. Like they do a really good job at stuffing you at the line of scrimmage. They've been susceptible to passing, like basically since that Browns game when Jameis lit them up for like 500 yards. Since then, they've really not been the same pass defense. So I think this is going to be a game where the Bills drop back to pass a lot, which I think will end up leading to a lot from Josh Allen. So that's why I like the Josh Allen quarter unit on this. I got it at plus 500. I'd still take it at plus 480. That's fine. Yeah. And then the 50 plus rushing yards is what I took as well.
Yep. He got that last year, right? You mentioned that in the playoffs.
Say that again.
I don't know if you mentioned it, but he got that last year in the playoffs as well. I think he was at like 59 yards or so last year in his game.
Yeah, last year he ran for 70 in both playoff
70,
games.
Right, 70 plus in both. I thought it was 59 plus, but it was 70 plus in both. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought about laddering it up to 70, but I just decided to go to 50.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned that you had a lean on Allen. What stuff do you actually?
I took Kincaid. It's now at 36.5 receiving yards. But I think he's good for about 6 to 7 targets. I think he's good for about 3 to 4 receptions. And I think he'll keep a really nice high average yards per reception and ADOT in general. So yeah, 35.5. Like I said, I took this 33.5. I'm fine with like up to like 37, 38.5 around there. I think if you look at it, my projection is basically like 3 to 4 receptions, an average of about 12 yards per reception. So I was fine with 33.5 to get to like 36, 37, like I said, just partly what he's been doing to a degree. But there's also just like the fact that I like that he's been on ice for 3 games in a row. This was partly what I was looking at was like, I mean, I've got him. I had him on my fantasy team. He didn't help me. The Josh Allen, Dalton Kincaid stack did not end up working fully, but I was hyper aware of what Dalton Kincaid was doing for the last like 6 weeks of the season. Like, my guy, I know you haven't done much for me this year. Could this be the time where we get ready for the playoffs and ramp up? And I noticed he was on the field way less. He still had a 50% route participation percentage. So he was still running routes at least half the time when he was out there. The other half, he was definitely a decoy because he really wasn't even blocking. And they just got him out there for, I guess, cardio, because Knox got way more the target share for the tight ends for the last 3 weeks. My guess here is like, I still think we all know Dalton Kincaid physically and, athletically even is just a better tight end, a better football player than Dawson Knox, bigger, faster, stronger, right? Everything. So it makes sense that you would focus on him more. I'm with him in this one. And it's a little bit of fade recent results, but it's also reading the tea leaves, going like, why would your best tight end not even be getting used in the last 3 weeks when you at least needed to win a couple of those games? Well, I think we know it's going to be because he gets a bigger usage in this one.
Yeah, I love Kincaid. I was super high on him at the beginning of the year. I just don't really trust any of the pass catchers on the Bills. So like one of those teams where like Cooper hasn't done anything in forever. And like, especially from a touchdown perspective, it could be one of 7 guys. Yeah. I did a couple looks that I didn't bet that I liked.
Just to the record, though, because you brought Cooper up, that was a part of the analysis. Is like, what's Cooper going to do on the outside, right? If he's completely slammed, you got Riley Moss on the other side. So that was sort of the thinking. But I could also see Shakir or someone in the slot doing some damage today too. Yeah,
Shakir receptions I could see because they just get a lot of like design targets for him, a lot of stuff at the line of scrimmage just to kind of like keep the ball moving. Right. They bake that in. They juice Shakir's receptions. Right. Let's see if we can find that.
Yeah, pretty heavily.
They juice his receptions because they know over. Yeah, I mean it's over 5.5. You are getting plus money, but
right. They're doing
it's this would also be a fade recent results type of thing.
Yeah.
So, a couple that I liked, Javonte. Any Broncos receiving back. If you think it's going to be Javonte, if you think it's going to be Jaleel McLaughlin, one of them I think is going to have a good receiving game. The Bills gave up the highest target share to the running back position on the year. And even if you take out, like Devon Achane had 7 and 8 receptions against them in those 2 games, like 15 to the running back in 2 games is insane. I looked this up. Even if you took out those 2 games, they still had the 3rd highest target share to the running back position. So even if you take out 2 incredible games that would only help our point, they're still the 3rd highest. And like Bo Nix, as he's gotten better, he hasn't targeted the running backs as much. That's like he also hasn't been running as much. Like his rushing has gone down.
Yeah.
But Javonte gets more targets than looks like he's over 16.5 is the best price. He gets more targets than Jaleel McLaughlin. But it's also kind of skewed by an outlier, like 11 target game. Like that's almost double his next highest, which is 6. So it just felt like kind of flipping a coin and not knowing which one to go with. It could honestly be both, but I get the receptions angle because he got over 3.5. I mean, that's plus 140. Like that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Hit that in 6 of 17 games, which is not amazing, but yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts? Did you look at
I'm just getting so much conflicting info about the running back situation for Denver. Like you'll find just as many people backing Audric Estime as are backing McLaughlin as are backing Williams for even just volume projections, right? Just who's going to even be on the field to participate. And so I just ended up staying away entirely. My initial thought is like, is Jaleel going to get back on the field? Like he had the highest rushing total for a second as well for this team at the line. So I just thought that might mean he's out there for more. Why would the guy who you've been passing to, but then also Javonte has also increased his workload in the pass game a ton, right? Basically like since Estime even came around, so they can make sure that they get Javonte out there. Like it's just a mess. And it's not something I'm going to mess with at this point with Sean Payton, who's still just like, I'm not going to believe anything he says, but if you think Javonte is sort of the guy that's going to have the bulk of the share out there, then I think you've got to at least look at the receiving for him as well. So I have no idea what to do. That's a long way of saying that.
Javonte's rushing line is 8.5. Is that real?
Yeah.
Is this a glitch? It is 8.5.
That's it. Can you just go down and look at some recent numbers real quick?
That's crazy.
Has he gotten anything close to has he gotten more than 2 freaking touches a game, basically? Like,
yeah, but like if you're getting 4 or 5 carries, like you can get 10 yards.
Yeah,
it's like 2-3 yards out. That's crazy. I didn't realize it was that low.
Yeah. This is one of those things where if we had a full Sunday slate, we would not even be talking about this, right?
Yeah,
but
that's true.
We've got stuff we have to look at, and I can understand trying to find value in one of these RBs. This is an exact spot. I don't want to have to hate Sean Payton with a fiery passion after the game when he just screws me on the running back I try to bet on. So that particular bet I'm not in on, but like you're like 8.5 yards, just fall forward 3 times, man.
Just give him 2 carries. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. You're 3 yards tall, like almost.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Well, honestly, just pick offensive lineman, just throw him for 3 times and he'll get 9 yards. Producer David this is another one that I wanted to talk about is I actually was looking at James Cook. He seems to like Ty Johnson. I'm guessing because when Ty Johnson's on the field, they are throwing the ball. So that makes sense. It's kind of like Jalen Warren with the Steelers. When he's on the field, more often than not, they're throwing. In the Broncos, such a high pressure rate, such a high blitz rate. They actually weren't as good at receiving yards to the running backs as I would have thought, which is why I didn't end up betting it. I think they get a lot of targets to the running back position, but they don't really give up a lot of yards. But I mean, 7.5 is crazy low. But if you look at the matchup, and I'm actually too zoomed in to go here, I guess actually 20. Oh no, yeah. Actually, maybe I was looking at something else. 26th receiving yards allowed to the running back position. That's actually pretty good. Ty Johnson, even in that outlier.
Good for Ty Johnson.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
That's better than so I don't know what I was looking at something incorrectly because I didn't realize they were 26th. Gotcha. Maybe it's like as the season went on, they were worse against wide receivers and better towards running backs. I'm not sure. Yeah, I didn't bet it, so I don't have like the full analysis. But yeah, I mean, Ty Johnson, obviously, beginning of the year, not much. At the end of the year, a lot more. So
right,
makes sense to me.
Not like like essentially I'm trying to think of, and I'll pull this up real quick. I want to see what James Cook's route participation has really been, because if he's going to be on the field the most, I wonder like how much by committee is this? I know Ty Johnson has the best numbers when it comes to success rate. Dave was talking about versus man coverage. Like, I don't know. I don't know how much it matters in general if it's just about who's going to be on the field, to be honest. And James Cook isn't going to really be yielding time on the field, because it's like you shorten your rotation kind of thing when you get to the playoffs. Then what's that going to be like? So I'm actually just looking at that real quick. I'm going to see what his route participation was in the last. Yeah, I mean, last week obviously was nothing, but he's still up at about 30%. So for James Cook,
route participation.
Yeah, and then the snap share, when he has been held. Yeah, I mean, honestly, though, to David's point, like in the last 6 weeks, 38% snap share, 47%, 45, 42, 35, 47. That's not high for the starting running back for the Bills in games that they still needed from like week 9, 10, 11 on. So that is interesting that if he has become clearly the like scat back from that perspective, like, yeah, I think Ty Johnson might be slightly better in the pass game in this one than James Cook, but that's just based on snap shares. Like I haven't got that much info to back it. So
right, yeah, just what I see right off the bat is like the beginning of the year was all James Cook. Then after whatever this week is, he didn't do much, and this is also like when Ty Johnson started to increase. Yeah. So, and James Cook number is also higher. I mean, his is 14.5. Ty Johnson's is like 8.5.
Got you.
So yeah.
But you're on Cook, right? To be clear, like you bet Cook receiving?
No, I didn't bet. The only official bet that I have was Josh Allen, the rushing and the touchdowns. I don't have anything else. The leans that I liked was the Javonte receiving.
Right. Got you. Well, let me make sure I give one out before we get off this game too, though. Because I'm with you. So I've got Kincaid over 30 at this point, 35.5. You've got the Josh Allen rushing on your card as well. I like Mr. Mims as well. Marvin. Mims.
Yes. There's a lot of people asking about Mims.
Yeah. So the way I played Mims was long reception. If you don't mind, is 19.5 still available for Marvin?
Starvin Marvin. Let's find out.
Starvin Marvin. So many nicknames from Marvin. Marvin Mims.
Looks like 19.5 minus.
Does he not sound like a made up Disney character? This Marvin is my best friend, Marvin Mims. Like
he's an MM, so I have to respect him.
That's true. Yeah, the MM there. For Mims, 20.5. Over 19.5. I took over 30.5 as well for like plus 230. I'm not sure what the ladder is up to over 30.5, but this man's a psychopath, dude. These numbers are insane to me. Like it's more about how Sean Payton is using him. But first of all, he's leading the league in average separation per route run. That's an insane number or insane name to put at the top of that list in Marvin Mims. That's crazy. Then you've got the yak, and that's a big part. This is all yak. That's what we're talking about here is yards after catch, leads the league in yards after catch per catch made. So every time he catches the ball, he's getting more yards on average than everybody else after he catches the ball. He's topped both 19.5 and 30.5 long reception in 6 of the last 7 games since he's come on as a psycho. Like I said, 62 yards per game in the last 7, which for most people came out of completely nowhere. The numbers here for him, he had the 93-yarder, 53, 51, 37, 37, 32. Those are 6 of the last 7 games. Half of those 6 that I just said came on passes that he caught behind the line of scrimmage. This man caught the ball behind the line of scrimmage and got 30 to 50 to 90 yards of yak on average in the last 7 games. So I'm very confident in Sean Payton to continue to find him in space. I do think they'll have to continue throwing a bunch. This is where Buffalo is now just clearly so freaking vulnerable. And I think he could get there on a wheel route where he's already 40 yards down the field too, by the way, for the long reception. So I'm not just giving him the screenplay here. I think it's also, you have outs in the deep passing game where Buffalo is very, very vulnerable against the explosive play. And in the last 4 games that mattered, not including the last week of the season, 320 yards passing per game allowed. A little bit skewed by Stafford, putting up like 8,000 yards on them. Fine. But there's 16 completions allowed of 20 plus yards in the last 4 games for them, and 4 completions of 30 plus yards. So 1 a game plus about 4 per game that are 20 plus yards, right? So I think that there's a lot of numbers telling you this is how you beat the Buffalo defense, and this is the guy that you go to. Courtland Sutton, great. You want to go there? Fine. I think after that, Marvin Mims has to be the look here.
I like it. I mean, like his longest reception, as you mentioned, is 19.5. Every time he's hit it, 6 of the last 7 games, it's been 30 plus. like to me, and you can get 30 plus at plus 280 at FanDuel. That to me, that's absolutely worth a ladder. It was the same logic for why I took Pickens, and that ended up cashing.
Yeah.
So I 100% love that. Yeah, cool. All right. Anything else in this game?
No, that might be my favorite play from the game. So I think I'm definitely good on this one after that. I think it's gonna be a fun game though. I'm gonna look forward to this one.
Yeah, it's just I don't really like betting on either of these teams, which is or like props for either of these teams.
Well, I was going to Bo repeatedly for the rushing until he stopped doing it. So
yeah, he stopped running.
Yeah,
he was and the Javonte thing.
What we're saying is like you're either betting on Sutton and Bo Nix, or you're not betting on this team. Because why would you bet on Franklin, Vele, any of the running backs, any of the tight ends? Like, why would you mess with any of that? So
yeah, freaking Sean Payton.
And then and the Bills too. They have like 30 touchdowns, like 9 different receivers or 10 different.
Yeah,
like, it's crazy. So
yeah. Cool. All right, Eagles, Packers. Nobody's gonna listen to me what I have to say because they're just gonna see my patent jersey and call me a homer. So I'll let you go first. What do you think in this one?
Well, to be fair, I think you do have enough of a perspective to be able to bet on or against the Eagles. I do think that. I think we're both that way about our teams. Mine's the Giants, so it's really easy to fade them. But as far as this game goes, the only thing I was looking at, and I don't have it on the card, but I was looking at an under for Jacobs receiving. He had like 22.5 yards receiving. I think he's had like 3 of his last like 6 games. He had 0 targets or receptions. So is it 19.5? What's the you could probably get about like 21.5 under on a legit book. So I love that still. Yeah. Minus 105. I know he's had a few games, but there's like 3 of the last 5, like I said, 0 targets, 2 yards in a target last game. So it's really just like in the playoffs, it looks like we're going to see a little bit more Emmanuel Wilson as well when they do want to have some passing coming out of the backfield. He got dinged up in the either Seattle or New Orleans game. I can't remember what my research said, but one of those two, Wilson got dinged up too, putting Jacobs out there fully. So I don't like him to get that many yards. I don't like him to get more than like 2 targets, in which case, like now I'm projecting like 11 yards per reception for him to go over. I just didn't like that. So I think that's a big part of it against the Eagles. And then honestly, conversely, like Jordan Love to go over 1.5 rush attempts. That's definitely an angle that I've been looking at, is like QB rushing in the playoffs, including yesterday when I took under Lamar passing. Should have taken over the rushing. It was so heavily correlated that it was going to be about the attempts for Lamar. I think Jordan Love is going to get 3 to 4 attempts in this game. I know he hasn't been rushing as of late, but once again, this is the playoffs. And one of the main reasons I feel like Jordan Love didn't run for the last like 3 weeks of the season was Jordan Love didn't want to get hurt again, which is obviously the biggest problem. So I think at this point, it's like, why would you be, what are you holding back for? Your next year's playoffs? Like, you don't even know if you're going to get there. So I think you saw last year he ran against the Niners as well, and I think he'll run this year.
Yeah, that makes sense. If we look at his last playoff game, 5 attempts against the Niners, only 1 against the Cowboys, but that game, like, they were up 21-0 before we even had a chance to sit down and finish our coffee in that game. I know a lot of people liked Love under passing, which makes sense to me. They're such a heavy run team now. The odds have gotten a little bit nuked. Like, I think this was in the 220s, if I remember correctly. The Hawks in here will tell me what he got it at, because I know this is one of the first plays he locked in.
Under passing yards was
passing yards for Love. Yeah, I mean, like, hit it in the first 5 games of the year, and then since then it's been kind of hit or miss. They're just a run heavy team now, and like the Eagles, the run defense is awesome, but the way you have success against them is you like can't get in these 3rd and long. 230.5 is crazy. Now it's 2 down to 218. He got 12 yards of CLV. That's just a Hawk for you.
Damn.
But yeah, I didn't actually bet this. I was just giving out. The one that I did bet was I took Saquon Barkley in his receiving yards. It's possible that I'm just like trying to galaxy brain this one, and that I should just take his rushing, like Derrick Henry crushed his rushing line yesterday. Not that necessarily means anything, because like just because that happened, but it's just about the matchup. The Packers have their level, like they're middle of the pack in terms of receiving yards overall, 6th most to running backs. This number's gone up as the season has gone on. They have a lot more and more receiving yards to the running back position. Like, their defense has kind of gotten better over the course of the year. They've gotten better in terms of, like, they have the best stuff rate in the NFL, like literally number 1 in terms of run plays that were stuffed, like over 50%. Really good run defense. Obviously, Saquon's shown that he can run on anybody. Like, he ran on the Ravens, who was like number 1 run defense basically the entire year. But I do think that, like, they're going to have to get him the ball in space, and they're not necessarily going to be able to just spam run Saquon. That's kind of my thoughts. And like a lot of these games, you take out these last two because Hurts didn't play in them. He missed it in 3 straight, but like Panthers, I mean, he didn't like, why even throw him the ball against the Panthers?
Yeah.
This Steelers game was another game where they ended up going really heavy to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. And then prior to that, I mean, this Ravens game, he ran all over them. But then prior to that, like he hit, it was what, like 6 of 11 games, averaged 17 receiving yards per game. He hit it in the first game against the Packers. They had like a really creative designed wheel route for him. Like at the first touchdown that they scored, like Jalen Hurts rolled out to his right, went back over to the left, threw it to Saquon for a touchdown. And it's how you target the Packers defense. Like the Packers defense has gotten really good as the season has gone on. They really limit any, like they welcome you to throw in the middle of the field, which is not what not what Jalen Hurts wants to do. They also have really, like their linebackers, Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper are like, this is the first time they're playing together, and they're both like fast closing speed type of guys, athletic. So I don't necessarily know if Hurts is going to run a lot, except for like a touchdown, which when they push his tush. But I was debating laddering this one, like 20 plus or 30 plus. But if it's one of those games where Saquon runs for 150, I'm going to.
So that's my question to you is I think we need to know. My thing with Saquon when looking at both of these was, what do I think is going to happen with the rush? And it's so even in terms of the Packers defensive, their rush DVOA and the Eagles offensive rush DVOA. It's like
it's best on best.
It's just like, this is going to be smash mouth, whoever wins at the line, and it can actually tackle Saquon if he gets past the line. It's everything. So if he does have success running, that's my fear of taking an over on the receiving, is that you're just going to keep feeding him and try to use that success. If not, then if he gets stuffed at the line, they're not going to take him out of the game to put Gainwell in for receptions or anything. So in that situation, you just turn Saquon into a receiver, which is like scary as hell, honestly, if you're the defense, just as scary. So I do think that they're gonna the Packers rush defense will have enough success limiting Saquon, even if it is still 4.5 yards per carry. It's not 6, and that's going to be huge for them to be able to get for the Eagles to be able to then use him in the pass game if they need to. But that was my worry and stay away for him on the receiving, was if he does win the run game, which I can't predict because I think it's legit 50-50 who's going to win every rush that they have for the Eagles, then I don't know if his receiving will be as involved if he's succeeding. So that was part of the stay away for me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it is kind of, could just be a galaxy brain take where it's like, I haven't taken Saquon Barkley's rushing once this year because it's always so high. Yeah. And he always goes over. You know what I mean? Like in my head, I'm like, his over under in a playoff game is 103.5. That's insane. And then you look at it, he's done that in 11 of 16 games. He's averaged 125. So he's like, he averages 20 yards more than what his over under is at. I mean, part of my logic for pumping up props is the books always price closer to the median than they go the average or the ceiling. And like, this would be a case where you should have some value on Saquon. I see 103.5 and I just am like, that's crazy.
It's insane. Yeah. I think the only thing, what's the rush to receive then? Like 130, 128.5 or something like that?
Probably closer to like 115 if I had to guess. Cause his over under receiving is like 12.5.
Oh, it's that down to 12.5. Yeah. Okay.
Oh no. So they do price in the fact that he could go over his average in both. So that you're right. That's higher than I honestly would have thought. Because if you just add his rushing plus receiving, it's closer to the 118.
Right. Yeah. I don't mind that from the standpoint that like
he's going to be one of them.
Yeah, he could get 50 yards receiving, right? If he gets 50 and 70 yards rushing, all right, then that's where we're at. So
that's true. Rushing plus receiving could be the way to go. I see that the line is just so low. You just get him the ball in space and like and that's what they like. And that's what they did in a couple games. That's not what I want to look. In a couple games where like their offense was kind of sputtering, like 40 yards, 52, 47. It's like, oh, we're like, our offense is kind of sputtering a little bit, especially in this Washington game where they had 3 points heading into the fourth quarter.
Right.
They're like, okay, let's try and do things a little bit differently.
Right.
So maybe does their offense come out sputtering a little bit? Like is Hurts a little bit rusty coming off the concussion? Who knows?
Yeah. Crankstone's saying we should just put more money on it and take another bet for him. That way, if one of them doesn't hit, we at least won the other one. Which is pure degeneracy, and I love it. But
there is logic in like 2+ money plays. Find both for unit, and then you go 1-1.
Always, yep. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind Saquon 100 and a tutty either. To be honest, on the rushing,
because it's Saquon.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Cool.
I didn't really have much for this game, by the way. This is my least bet game.
Okay. The only two other things I wanted to talk about. Number one is if he's still there, Hurts anytime touchdown was plus 100, which I think is crazy. Like I get he's coming off the concussion, but it's also a playoff game, and like it's Jalen Hurts for even money to score a touchdown, which like 66% of games this year, 60% of games last year. I think he did it in the playoff game. I guess he didn't do it in the playoff game last year. That team was a joke. He did it in every single playoff game 2 years ago when the team was actually good. Right. And they just mash the tush push button. That's all you got to do. And he didn't do it the first game against them, but that was the weird turf game where they like the teams are slipping, sliding around everywhere. I didn't actually bet this one yet, but plus 100 for Hurts to score. I think it should never be plus 100.
Yeah, agreed. There's something about mash the tush push that I can't get out of my head.
It's a fun name. Yeah.
I just don't know if mash the tush should be 3 words said in order ever. But you know what? It's early on a Sunday for us. Yeah. Why? What the hell are we talking about here? Yeah. Plus 100. It's crazy that like plus 100 for a touchdown. But come on, man. If this team does get inside the 3 even, then I think we know what's going to happen. It's going to be 2 to 3 straight tush pushes. Just mash that button, and then you'll get it in. So yeah, I have zero qualms with that.
Yeah. Mash that tush.
Yep. Mash the tush, man.
All right, we can move on to the last game. This game actually I also think is going to be fun. I think the Commanders are going to win. I know that the Bucs have looked good. I'm not really a believer in Baker Mayfield. Even though like he's been good this year, I need to see it. I mean, I guess unless I see it in the playoff game, I don't know if I'll necessarily believe it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the Commanders are going to win straight up. I put a half unit on them at plus 140. I didn't send it out because like that's more so just me kind of like gambling more so than me being like, here's my like analytical thought. So I didn't send it out. But in terms of player props, would you like in this one?
Interesting. My player props indicate that I probably like the Bucs a little bit more, but I don't need them to win at all. So my first bet here that I prefer is I took Jaden D under. I took him under in the pass and rush combined.
Okay, so combined
283.5 yards.
It's risky business.
Risky business because he had 83 year on them in the first game, 80 in the first game.
You took up under passing plus rushing?
Plus rushing, yep.
Okay.
Under, what's that number say right now?
295.5.
Okay, great, yeah. Oh, wow, that went up. Wonderful. Okay, I don't really care if it went against me, but what I'm basing this on is, 205 yards per game on the road. That's the starting point for me, which just kind of led me to feel strongly that in a hostile environment on the road, it's not going to get better for him when you look at just his road games, essentially. So the rushing has been there for him at times for sure. Obviously, those 320, 378, 349, all the 300 numbers, I believe he had at least 50 to 60 yards rushing in all of those as well. So it would add up. Yeah, it'd be 127. 81. So if he gets the 80 yards, then okay, like that's where we're at. But I don't think he's getting much more than like 210 passing yards. And I think it's a big part of it is to do with the fact that the Bucs are going to be looking to stop the deep ball. And if you don't have the deep ball to Scary Terry, then you don't have very much for Jaden Daniels outside of that. Anything past like 15, 20 yards is pretty much all Terry. Everything else is going to be like some Z, whose name Zacchaeus and
Zacchaeus.
Zacchaeus. You've got some Greek in your family, so maybe you're better at saying that, right?
Olamide Zacchaeus. Yeah,
there you go. You nailed it.
It's just a fun name. He played for the Eagles last year, so it's just a fun name.
Played for the Eagles. That's right. Yeah.
Fun name to say.
Well, Jahan Dotson played for the Eagles too. His name's fun as well. He still sucks right now. But anyway, more importantly for Jaden, I do think you've got Antoine Winfield coming back. I don't think I saw a Jamel Dean update either, the other corner for the Bucs that was missing, and he was slated to potentially be back, but he was questionable as of yesterday still. So not sure what you'll get out of him. But the thing about the rushing is the Bucs have been giving up a good amount of rush attempts from the quarterback. They're in like the bottom 5 in terms of a ton of rush attempts going against them. They're also limiting quarterbacks to 4.4 yards per carry, which is also in the top 10 because they are still playing containment while they get a ton of pressure on the quarterback. And they're forcing quarterbacks out of the pocket, obviously, but a lot of it is also through the middle, interior rushes that they force the quarterback because they are containing on the outside. And for Jaden Daniels, like for him to get 85 5 yards on, like, let's say it is about 10 attempts, then he's going to have some outlier runs there against a Bucs team that's kind of ready for this. And they got torched by him last time. So that is a part of the fade recent results, is like the coaching staff's sort of, their sort of realignment on defense to make sure that they're keeping Jaden Daniels in front of them, and then keeping receivers in front of them as well. Just don't let Terry behind the safeties. And they do play enough cover 4 high with, once they have in Antoine Winfield out there, they play 3 and 4 high enough in the back there to be able to limit Terry over the top. And after that, I don't know what you rely upon for Daniels outside of trying to run and throw into your running backs, because I think Eckler's back too. So you have that out there, but I'm really still not scared of it on the long run.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And it's also like, I mean, he's awesome, but if you take a step back, it's a rookie playing on the road in his first playoff game against like a really smart defensive mind in Todd Bowles. So
right.
If you just kind of ignore the fact that he's been like one of the best rookies we've seen, that part kind of makes sense, because it's like, yeah, teams are game planning for him. And another thing, like, I do think the Commanders win. I might just be drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit too much on Jane Daniels, but to a point against them, his scramble success rate on 3rd and 4th down is in like the 99th percentile. And like Lamar Jackson isn't doing that.
Right.
Prime Cam Newton wasn't doing that. Michael Vick wasn't doing that. Like these high leverage scrambles have been just, everything's worked out in his favor. And it happened against the Eagles. He converted multiple 3rd and 4th downs with his legs. It happened against like every 3rd down against this Falcons team he was running. Yeah. You just have to imagine that they're going to be a little bit more, they're going to be looking out for that a little bit more, and they're not going to allow him to beat him with his legs. But so yeah, the one that I went with is I went Zach Ertz, 40 plus receiving yards. The odds on this is receptions, but whatever. The odds on this got a little bit nuked. I took, like right now 40 plus is -104. Let me look and see. Again, same thing. There's no Bet365. But part of the logic is kind of what you said about like the Bucs playing the too deep, like the deep coverage. They don't really allow themselves. Yeah. So -104 is the best price. So I got it at plus, I think 115. So it's not like a crazy difference. Plus 110. Yeah. So it's not that crazy. But anyways, the Bucs are pass funnel. 3rd most passing yards allowed per game, 2nd most specifically to tight ends. And like you said, they don't let themselves get beat deep, but they can give up a lot of yards. So it's a lot of like kind of dink and dunking, 8 to 10 yard passes and stuff like that. That's Zach Ertz's bread and butter. There's a couple games, like you can take out this game because he got hurt. This is the game he got a concussion. This was his first game back from the concussion where he barely did anything. And then this game, he also played sub 50% of the snaps. So you take out those 3 games, 7 of 14, which like a 50% hit rate isn't amazing, but it's a little bit better recently. It's a matchup play. And I just like the fact that he gets consistent targets. Like you take out those 3 games that I mentioned, 3 targets in one game and then 4 in every other game. He's a reliable target catching. I mean, 72% is honestly lower than I would have thought. Looks like that's kind of, this game is doing a lot of damage, 2 of 8. A lot of other times it's 5 of 5, 6 of 7, 4 of 5, 4 of 5, all 4, all 5, stuff like that. So I think he's going to get a lot of kind of like 4 to 5 10-yard passes. And that's kind of what it's going to be. If you wanted to do receptions, you could do that. Over 3.5 for plus money is not bad. The hit rate on that is also relatively the same. I just think that because they're going to be passing so much, I think in like a lot of the stuff is going to be like not letting Scary Terry beat them deep. Like that's not Zach Ertz's thing. They're not going to care about him beating them deep, but it's honestly interchangeable between the yards and the receptions. You just have a little more room for error, in my opinion, on the yards.
Yeah, that's usually the case too. I think the receptions, if you want the plus money, fine. I don't really know how the Bucs will sort of try to bracket him in any way. I think they're going to basically leave Lattimore on what am I trying to say? Thank you, Jesus, Mike Evans. Wow, simplest name to ever think of, and I still couldn't get Mike Evans. So I think that makes a ton of sense for Ertz to be a little bit more open in the middle of the field, where they're probably a bit more vulnerable. And in that yardage range for him too is where he's going to be living, right? That 10 to 15 yards,
exactly,
in front of the safeties. That's the spot for him down the seam or on a cross route, whatever. So yeah, I like the Ertz look.
Cool. Yeah, that's all I had in this game. There a couple of leans that I liked that I didn't bet was
I took
Oh no, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't realize you had another one. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Who did you took Jalen? You like Jalen McMillan, but you didn't bet him?
Yeah, for a touchdown. Yeah, that's all I was going to say. He's been awesome. It's a rookie making his ascent into like the second half, which you see all the time. We talk about it all the time.
Yep.
The odds are kind of starting to reflect that. Like he's normally a plus 200 and above, not a plus 165. But he's also scored 7 touchdowns in the last 5 weeks, so you kind of pay for that. So I didn't bet it, but
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
I think that still makes sense with Lattimore probably either blanketing Evans or the two of them fighting by the end of the first quarter. That's just as likely. So not sure if either of them will make it to the end of the game. But Jalen McMillan is definitely a safer bet in this one for sure. So I'm with you on that. I did like Bucky. I was waffling between the attempts and the rushing yards. And I ended up just going with the attempts because it was plus money for over 17.5. But I'm fine with either. At this point, the rushing yards, yeah. Oh, no, that's obviously not the core number.
But, yeah, I was just looking at the
that was the whole number. The
so attempts is minus 110 for 17.5. It looks like. Let me see.
Yep. Still good with that. And then, so are the yards at 80 something now?
So the yards, they're like 86.5 if I remember correctly. 80, even more, 88.5, even higher.
Went up a little bit. I mean, it scared me a little bit, but I do think if he's going to get the attempts now, I still just prefer the attempts. Honestly, even against a bad rush defense, like I'm sure he's probably good for close to 100. And if the receiving game for him works out, but I think you've got to bring it against the rush defense, and you've got Frankie Louvu limited as well. Obviously, the solid linebacker there. Yeah. So, yeah, I think if you look at him, as long as he's getting close to that, like if he's getting 15 rush attempts, I do like the rushing yards as well. So it leads me to still want to bet the rushing, but it's at 88.5 now. It was at like 82.5 when I looked at it, and just that 8 in front of a rushing prop is so scary all the time. Unless it's Derrick Henry, to be honest, and at this point probably Saquon. But yeah, I think Bucky's going to have a good time running, and they're just going to keep giving it to him. I don't think they're going to be messing with Rachaad White, even in passing down situations, quite as much. So I don't mind Bucky on the receiving either, by the way. But all good for whichever one you wanted to take.
Yeah, someone in the comment, Kevin, liked longest rush. It hasn't quite hit in 5 straight. You can take out this game because he got hurt, but it's 5 of 6, which is still pretty good. Yeah, I looked a lot into Bucky rushing yards. I looked at wait, what am I? Oh, that's first half rushing yards. I was like, why does that look weird? I was going to bet 90 plus for plus money, and I ended up not doing it. That would have been a good line because now like you're paying main lines at 90 plus. The thing that scared me off is like, okay, so we take out this game. Look at the games in which he had good rushing games. Panthers twice, who stink. Giants, who stink. Chargers, who don't stink, but they beat the living crap out of them, 40-17. Last week is kind of a weird week, which sure, like he still had 89. Only time they lost in this stretch, he had 68 rushing yards. He didn't even come close. Now, he did have 16 attempts. Right. So like the attempts were still there. It's just hard for me to parse. Are they still going to give Bucky all the snaps in a playoff game? Because they love Rachaad White. Even though he's not that good, they love Rachaad White. If the Commanders can keep up on offense, I don't necessarily think they're just going to spam the running game 25, 20, 19 times. I know you like his attempts over. And if they're winning, then that's going to hit for sure. And the Washington run defense is not good. 4th most rushing yards per game. I think they're number 1 in terms of adjusted yards allowed before contact, meaning number 1 in terms of the worst. Like they allow the most rushing yards before contact.
The Commanders
per attempt. Yeah.
Yeah, that is correct. You're right.
Yeah. A lot of that has to do with they played Saquon Barkley twice, and he had 4 long runs where he didn't get touched. So like that's going to juice their numbers a little bit, but that also did still happen. Right. For me, like I totally understand, in 90 plus or plus money would have been a good play. Yeah. It was too difficult for me to look at the games in which he went over. Oh, he did it against the Giants and the Panthers twice. And then he did it against the Chargers in the game. They won 40-17, where this game was a complete and utter blowout. Like it wouldn't shock me at all if they gave Rachaad White way more work than we wanted them to, because they just cannot quit Rachaad White.
If that's the case, then I'm gonna have to eat that for sure. This is because there's some speculation on my part, right? There is the speculation that like reading into it that this is going to be the guy getting the bulk of the involvement is Bucky. Same concept as Kincaid. I have to just bank on what I believe to be true for the coaches and what I think would be the best play. And if the coaches don't agree with me, then the bet's probably not going to hit. You know, that's something where we're at. Yeah,
I mean that's what they call it, gambling. You know, one of us feels one way, one of us feels the other. The thing is, Bucky could still go over in games in which Rachaad White hits his receiving yards prop. So it happened against, I guess, this game Bucky hit his rushing. This game, I guess Bucky did not. Maybe it's a little bit more one or the other than I thought. I mean, I'm not putting money on Rachaad White. I just worry that it's going to be like one of those things where these coaches just can't quit these certain players. Baker loves Rachaad White, and he does, like, he catches 90% of his targets, which I get that Bucky does too. Yeah. But so I don't know. it's interesting.
I know what you're saying. You're kind of looking at it similar to how like we're talking about the Broncos, honestly, in that sense. So that's why I stay away from the Broncos. You're staying away from the Bucs running back committees, which is all understandable. We'll learn some more here, obviously, if there is games for any of these teams next week as well. But
yeah, that's true. I mean, we like this is like why I love like NBA playoffs too. Like there's no hiding. Like we know exactly how you feel when you play these games. Everything gets ratcheted up a little bit more. But cool. All right. Yeah, I didn't have as heavy as a card as I did today as I did yesterday. But anyways, anything left in this game? Anything left in any of the games that we missed?
Well, no, I mean, I'm not going to be. You've got the show tomorrow night, I believe. So for tomorrow, I'm not actually. Am I lying for you? I didn't want to promote something.
I haven't decided if I'm going to do it yet tomorrow.
Got you. Well, if you do, and I probably, I'm probably won't be on it. Well, we can talk, whatever. But if you do it, and and I'm not there, I do like Sam Darnold under on the passing yards in that game. I just think we've gotten out of control here. I know how bad the Rams are. So were the Lions in the past game, and that didn't seem to work out still really great in week 18 in the game that mattered. So I feel like we've already seen one playoff game from Sam Darnold this year, and we're going to just keep seeing that same type of result. So 270.5, it might be at like 265 now, but I'm still good with under anything like above 260 for Sam Darnold. Let's just not forget that it's Sam Darnold for a minute. And I think he's going to remind us that it's Sam Darnold in this game, which they don't even get at home. So, give me McVay all day, every day, twice on Sundays, and Kyren as well. Time of possession in the first game that those two teams played in week 8 was 35 minutes for the offense of the Rams and about 25 for the Vikes. And I think that Kyren will still be out there doing his thing with the attempts. He might need 3.9 yards per attempt to get to 85 yards, but I think he might be getting there on 25 freaking carries. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for how they beat. I know the Vikes is a pass funnel defense. I totally get it. This is also Sean McVay, who has shown that he would love to do nothing more than run the ball 90% of the time if he's allowed to. So I think we see plenty of that.
And Kyron's hit this against some good running defense. He hit it against the Vikings the first time. He hit it against, I guess he had 72 against the Eagles, so he didn't hit his 81.5. But his over-under was in the 60s in this game. So I know he went over when he played the Eagles. That makes sense to me.
They started to go down for him a little bit towards the end of the year when he was right, because look at that 22, 21, 23, 22. The end of the year, very end of the year, when they needed those games to get into the playoffs against Buffalo and whatnot. They were running, but in the middle there, they were like, we need to give this man a small break for 3 to 4 games or what have you, because he's not going to make it. And we actually have a chance at the playoffs. So that makes sense. The only thing with Sam Darnold is like not every defense, not every coach is equipped to pressure him the way that Aaron Glenn did with the Lions. So that's the only thing. Like that's where he really struggled, was under pressure. He just missed open throws. That's just classic Sam Darnold. The Rams do a good job getting pressure, but it's with their front four. So if their offensive line can block that up, it's like the blitz stuff that is a little bit scary. But I mean that totally makes sense. You're not going to catch like the Sam Darnold under in an important playoff game makes no one's coming. I don't think there's too many bets coming in on the over, but I could be wrong.
Over on the receivers, but nobody's going to be like, I want to back Sam Darnold.
Right.
We didn't have a question this morning. We went right into the bangers. We did do the countdown, but anyways, well. Oh, sorry. What'd you say?
No, I didn't know if you had a question of the day, but if we don't have one, it's all good.
Well, on my I did an NBA video where my question was favorite flavor of ice cream. And then on the NFL video for tomorrow, which my editor is going to get to it sometime this afternoon, I did favorite dessert. So if you want to answer those two questions real quick.
Cannoli, like all day, twice on Sundays, cannoli every day. I doubt I could ever get sick with cannolis. It's a phenomenal question, but anything cannoli, I'm good to go. Yep. Give you that one. Cheesecake?
Yeah.
Specific flavor? 1. No.
I love just a typical regular cheesecake is just, I also like flavored ones, but cheesecake's my favorite.
Nice. I'm with it.
Ice cream?
Not Antetokounmpo over rebounds, just for anybody who wants an NBA bet. Just so you know.
I bet that last night.
Did you? It was 10.5. It
was minus 120.
10.5. What are we talking about? This man has averaged nearly 12 rebounds a game for the last 7 years of his life, and you're giving me 10.5. Barolo is going to be guarding Cat. It's Giannis on OG. He could have 15 rebounds in this game. This is absolutely stupid.
That, and in that same game, Josh Hart for 10 plus rebounds was plus 160 last night.
Wow.
Now it's minus
110 at 8.5. Yeah.
You can get some plus money, looks like, on some offshore stuff, but that and it was 8.5 at minus 1 something. just a crazy.
Stupid.
Yeah. If you bet early, you can get some insane lines. The problem is like it's not accessible for everybody. Like if someone went to bed early last night or they didn't check their phone, they woke up and they were like, well, I can't bet this anymore. So there's like, I know Prop Bomb is like your boy. It's like he's heavy on not betting the night before because it's not best for the user experience.
Right.
Which like I see both sides. I see like how can the users make the most money? That's kind of the most important thing here.
Totally. Here's my thing when it comes to that though, is like, I'm going to bet this right now. Do you not want me to tell you about it because you might miss out on it? Right.
That's
also part of it. Like I get that you're not going to be, and people who come into my Discord usually know, like they may not bet every bet that I put out, whether they're capable of it or not, but I'm not going to not tell you what I'm betting. If I have access to these 6 books, I'm going to bet it when I can. If you can't get to it for whatever reason, I understand. I'm going to do my best to make sure you can, but bet early always. The only caveat that I throw on there is once you get to a certain level, and I know that this doesn't apply to 99% of the people in my VIP Discord, but it does apply to like 1 to 2% of them, which is if you are betting early at a high enough volume with enough money, you will get limited by doing that. The more CLV that you get is the only proven method that bettors have right now that they know if I get too much CLV and I'm betting $1,000 a bet, even $500 a bet, if that's my unit, I'm going to get limited pretty damn quick. Like, and I don't need that much CLV to get limited because they're just going, who's trying to take advantage of us? Who actually knows how to do this the right way? And then they flag you and then you get limited. Now, if you're betting even $50 a game, it's going to take a long time for you to get limited with your CLV, even if you're getting early bets down. So like I said, 99% of the people in my VIP probably don't give a shit if they're going to get limited eventually because they're betting 10 to 20 to $50 max. But just keep in mind, once you get to that point, you will get limited for the early stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I also think the limited part, I honestly hadn't really considered. I think that there are two sides of it. Like some people are going to be more available to bet at night. Like if they have kids, their kids go to bed, guess what? They now have free time to fuck around. Or there are people at work that aren't necessarily always busy during work, so they can bet during work. And then some people like after work is like theoretically when you do your live show at 5:30, that works for some people getting off work. Some people with kids say, I can't make that. Like I'm watching my kids now. So me betting everything in the morning. Sometimes it's for the people on the West Coast, they're not able to get it in time. People on the East Coast, that's perfect. So I think just like to say that it's the most convenient for everybody right before games isn't necessarily true. At the end of the day, people just want to make the most money. You know what I mean? Like that's really all that matters. And if people know that you could bet at night, you could bet in the morning. I think most people get that. I think to say one way is
Yeah. And that's why my clear schedule every day is nighttime. I'm going to be looking for bets. If I can get some lines and some value, I will put at least a couple out if they're available and I think they're a good number. Then the next morning, I'm going to wake up and see what happened to that movement. It's going to be, early morning in the West Coast, regular morning on the East Coast. And then as news starts to come out over the course of the next like 6 hours, basically until the final tip, then it's just staying on top of the injury news and coming out with bets as you can. But yeah, that's the schedule is like sometimes the night before, recheck it the morning of, and then keep betting throughout the day as lines move because it's a freaking stock market in the NBA, man.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to buy at the right time for some of these dudes. So
yeah, that's true. And I think the best way, honestly, is the way you described it is like, I'm going to bet it right now.
Yeah.
Would you rather me not tell you? And then so you can check my picket and you can say, oh, wow, why did you get this at 60 cents better than what it is? You know what I mean? It's like there are people that like, if I tell something that you bet or something that someone else bets, and obviously I'm not going to send that out on my own because that's not my bet. There are people that will message or like will comment on my Twitter like, I see you bet this on Pickett. How come like I didn't bet this? You know what I mean? It's like people just want to bet everything that you're betting. It's like, which I understand. If you're paying somebody, you're like, all right, I'm paying to bet everything that you get.
Totally. But I also have like 2 different websites and bookies that are not public that no one can get to. So I'm not going to show those bets. But that bookie's usually giving me a different price than the ones that I could get elsewhere. So anyway, for that stuff, I think, we will continue talking about that throughout the year, right? It's like, when should you bet the NBA? But that's the point of the live show at 5:30 on the East Coast is like, this is when the news is coming out. So like, we should be here together doing this, that's a big part of it. Another
thing where you could benefit with the NBA is you don't get screwed. If you wait until injuries are announced, you won't get screwed by injury news.
That's what it is, man. And people that I know betting 1 to 5K on a basketball game or a basketball prop or whatever, usually 1 to 2K is what they get limited on props, right? Like they're not betting until 3 p.m. Eastern at the earliest every day. Like every day. They're not betting before that because they're just like, I can't put down $5,000 of my hard-earned money and watch Joel Embiid have a 4 p.m. questionable tag or whatever, right? So they genuinely will not even bet until they know for sure who's in the starting lineup. So
which makes
sometimes
sense.
like 10 minutes to get it picked out.
Yeah, especially some of the other guys, they don't. Yeah, you'll miss out on some value, but
Yeah.
it's all about a push and pull in like some. Yeah. So anyway, so
one more look if you want it. If anybody wants it, I can't bring myself to bet on Spencer Dinwiddie anymore for the rest of my life. His name is Spencer. I can't. I'll never do it again. I won't. He's on the Miami Heat ban list for me, but his assists look really good against Denver, who gives up the most assists in the league. And he's still the point guard. He had 14 potentials last game for Dinwiddie and only got 5 dimes. In I believe that Memphis game that they just lost. Or no, that was the Wolves. It was somebody else that they. No, it was
Blazers.
Memphis.
It was Blazers.
Blazers, yeah. The Memphis game was prior to that. The Blazers, it wasn't even a blowout. The 14 potentials turned into 5 assists. Like, that's a nice fade of recent results too. But it's goddamn Spencer Dinwiddie, and he's too mid, and I can't bet on him. So
there are some players that I'm okay losing a bet on. Yeah. And there's some players that I'm not okay losing a bet on. And then
that's a great list. That could be an entire show. I'll throw out some names to start. Spencer Dinwiddie, Tobias Harris, can't do it. Why would I bet on Harrison Barnes? These are just soft players. Cole Anthony. God, no. Yes, another great one. They're just going to disappoint, right?
Yeah, there's some if I bet on Trae Young assists and he doesn't have any, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
If I bet on like LaMelo Ball points, I'm okay with that if he doesn't hit. I know he's putting up 18 3-pointers.
Yeah.
But they're like Beasley's actually a guy that I'm okay missing because he's either going to score 20 or he's going to score 14.
Right.
Beasley has made me a lot of money recently.
Right. Beasley has been tough for us in the VIP because every time I bet on him, he's gone 1 for 9, and every time I haven't, he's gone like 7 for 12.
Yeah.
So it's tough. But I stopped betting on him so that everybody else could make money on him. So you guys are welcome.
That's big of you. No, yeah, that's big of you.
You're welcome.
But yeah, like Giannis rebounds, like if he ends a day with 4 rebounds, that's fine because I know more often he's going to try and grab it. Same thing with Josh Hart. Like I know I bet on Josh Hart 10 plus. One game he had 7.
Yep.
And then then that was like the only time in 10 games where he didn't have 10 rebounds. So it's like there's some people that that would be a fun list. Like who am I okay betting on and losing?
Brad Beal is on my list of betting on not okay to lose. Douglas brought that one up. That's a great one. Yeah. Who's on my list that if I bet them and they lose, I'm going to that's why I can't bet on Dinwiddie today. Because if he doesn't hit it again, I'm going to freaking stab myself in the eye. And I can't afford to do that.
And like the same list is like, who am I okay not betting? And then they hit. Like, what can I can I accept this? That's like part of it. Like, will I mentally be okay with that?
That's like the same player to me, right? If Tobias Harris gets 7 rebounds and I didn't take his over 6.5, I'm going to be okay tonight. I'm going to be totally fine.
So be it.
Yep. Facts.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right, man. Well, yeah, fun times. Hopefully we all have a good day today. Everybody make sure to, if you're following or if you're watching from my channel, follow Josh. If you're watching from Josh's channel, follow mine. Everybody bet responsibly, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.